bidamalla ko mul Kenya bebe katalo apa ndaka singola ba nina dinel be na singa karanta bala mo ba ete kata footballo minne to fudu tele aba kala kata dam fonto ko jube wala man katalo ma wata du kala na ta
mbadi wala tala ndira ko na de betara hen sbitu wasbitika lawla man katana dale ni alaji Mohammed ani alaji Gora live on Kerr.
Now that I have saved some money to build my dream home, I'm really confused about which estate company to approach. My friend had a bad experience with a particular estate agency after completing his payment and could not even get his title deed. This is serious.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Thank you.
My name is Oli. I'm from EJ Investments.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
You know, I must say you came at a very right time.
Really?
I was thinking about houses.
Great.
What can your company offer me?
EJ Investments can offer you a lot. We're unique in the market.
Okay.
We own our properties and we ensure that they're developed with modern technologies. They're affordable and they are strategic locations. We don't just sell pieces of land, but we create settlements.
What makes your company different from others?
We're different from all real estate companies in the Gambia because what we have to offer is affordability, safety, and security. We ensure that you get a legal contract from when you pay your deposit, and within 4 weeks of paying your final settlement, we make sure you receive your title deed.
4 weeks?
4 weeks.
That's interesting.
Yes. Now tell me, what real estate serves your needs?
It's absolutely EJ Investment and Real Estate Agency.
Good day, viewers, and welcome to the first edition of The Brunch. In the next 90 minutes, I'll be taking you through exciting discussions, a review of the week, and as well featuring an entrepreneur of the week. We have a hotspot where you have different spots where we can go have a couple of things to dine or eat. And of course, we'll also be having a special guest in the studio. With me, I'm not alone today. I have in my immediate right, Mr. Lamin Cham from the Standard newspaper. Welcome, Mr. Lamin Cham.
Thank you, Joy, and thanks to listeners for this maiden edition of Brunch.
Thank you very much. And we also have a bona fide member of the house, who is Mr. Mustafa Dabo. Welcome to the Brunch.
Glad to be on the show.
Thank you very much, and we'll be delving straight into the newspaper review. Mr. Lamin Cham, what do you have trending for us during this week?
Well, in front of me virtually I have all the papers for the week on the review in this maiden edition of the Brunch, but three particular stories that really caught my eye before I come on air is the brewing controversy over what President Barrow had claimed that some journalists went to him asking for money to write good things about him. And of course, you know that a large section of the media in the Gambia and even in the diaspora have been asking the president to come out with names so that the journalists would no longer be feeling uncomfortable, because some journalists felt that this is really a direct attack on the integrity of journalism in general in the Gambia, and they want the president to come with names of the people or groups who have been to him to ask for money to write good about him. Of course, we must highlight that the president said he kicked against that because he felt that there's nothing good or beneficial to him if he pays to get good publicity. That's what the president said. But Mustafa would agree, journalists are still up in arms wanting the president to come out with names. The president said categorically that he's not coming up with any names, but definitely what he has said has really happened. So that's a talking point. One major topic of that's refusing to die down, actually.
Interesting. Mustafa?
Yeah, but it's quite interesting. But as Mr. Cham said, there's been a concern, and the concern has largely been that some of us think that the president had intentionally refused to name the particular person who went to him because he just wanted to want everybody to be presumed guilty. In this case, an attack on the press. That's how some of us have understood his statement to mean. Yeah.
Well, there have been, of course, we must say, some opinions in some quarters that the president is not mandatory by law or by any means to name names. I read a few columns, from one of them, a lawyer, who said the president, by constitution, is not even mandatory to name names. Now, people, of course, they are having counter views that, well, you better not say it at all if you wouldn't come out in details to say who exactly it is.
Right.
Because if you didn't say it at all, now if somebody comes to you, whether or not and asks for money, whether you or not you give him money, perhaps the best thing is to keep quiet, because he will think, okay, after all, if this man had given me money, he would have said it tomorrow that he gave me money.
Right.
So people really want to put the president on the spot that, okay, perhaps it would have been better if you don't say it at all. But now that you've said it, now people have a right to be concerned as to who did this, because it's an attack on the integrity of the journalists. So they want to say, Mr. President, if you are watching us, well, the journalists are still not understanding why you didn't come with this name of persons or groups of media who came to you one day. But then, of course, we must say that it was also highlighted in some quarters that it could well be that the president confused PR group with real journalism. Because, all over the world, public relations, are acceptable and are legal. You pay, for publications or, media groups to, write about your achievements or perhaps some of the things, which are very positive to the image of the government or the country.
Right.
And that is legitimate. You pay for that. So it may well be that these are the people who proposed to him. But then, of course, unless he himself comes out clearly, we will never know. And then the speculation will continue.
Interesting. I can't wait for you to delve into the former president's mother's demise. There have been a lot of assumptions, especially from journalists. I mean, the free journalists, that social media journalists, that there is every tendency that the president might come for the burial of the mother. What do you guys make of this?
Well, I think that's absolutely quite out of place and very far-fetched an opinion. That is absolutely not likely, because you see, as we speak now, the president's body have arrived. President's mother's body has either arrived or about to arrive in the country Saturday, and the burial will be at 5 o'clock on Sunday. But it is absolutely not true that former President Jammeh will come to that burial. It's not possible. What we know for sure is that the dead body, the government has consented to the dead body of the old woman to come to the Gambia. I think we'll have more from this later in the program. What I don't like about this thing, Joy and Mustafa, is that I don't think this is a time to make politics out of this. This is a sad day for relatives and people who actually knew the woman. And I think every Gambian now should feel that this is a sad moment, not a time for politics.
Okay.
Everybody can die, and on these occasions like this, people must put politics aside and give the old woman a befitting funeral and burial as are the rights in our cultures. That is what we know as Gambian.
But do you think, knowing the past happenings of the former president, that some people had died and he never allowed their corpse to be repatriated to their country in order for them to have a befitting burial, would you applaud this present government for practically allowing the corpse of the old woman to be buried in the Gambia?
Yes, because what do you expect from a government that has come as a democratic government to replace what was absolutely a tyranny? Now, you cannot compare the two. And people who are expecting that this new government will kind of, go, comparably to perform at the level of Jammeh, are definitely, not doing a good service to what the Gambian people have voted for and the change they have now achieved. Now, you cannot imagine that this new government and this new Gambia will act exactly the same way that Jammeh had acted.
Right.
Jammeh, during his time, these people were you've mentioned are his political opponents. For the Makalo was a former NCP National Assembly member. He was in fact actually a member of the APRC before he fled the country. When he died, Jammeh refused to have his corpse repatriated to Banjul for burial. And Boubacar Balde, who actually in fact was a member of his party before he fell out with him. And then of course Kukoy Sambasanyam, perhaps one of the most controversial figures among those people. He said their dead bodies would not come. That was Jammeh. That was his style. He can even quarrel with the dead. We have now come to a time when we said we have changed, and it's not surprising that President Barrow will consent to the fact that this woman is a Gambian, and her wish is to die is to be buried in the Gambia, and that wish have to be given to her. So I'm surprised when people actually raise this kind of issue. The two are different. The generations are far apart.
That's true.
You can't take Jammeh, treat him just as he was treated. Then we would have nothing to realize from the change we have achieved now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cham. That was quite insightful. Now to Mr. Mustafa. What do we have on the Kerr Fatou website?
We have covered quite a number of things, but more or less the same with what the newspapers have covered.
Okay.
But one important thing that we have on the website that was not featured on the newspapers, or perhaps I have not seen featured on the newspapers, was the report of the United Nations Human Rights Committee, which was in response to the Gambia's visit to the UN Human Rights Committee in Geneva about 3 weeks ago, to respond to critical questions with regards to the human rights situation in the country. One of the things that the UN has talked about was the alleged destruction of evidence at the SIS, if you like. The fact that the government hasn't given relevant attention, as it were, in the protection of evidence within the custody of the state intelligence services. We've covered that. It's been a concern that's been raised in the report. We've covered also of course, the death of the president's mother. Everyone has covered that. But also we've written about the report that FAR has issued, the Australian company that's currently in charge of Gambia's 2 prospective oil wells. You would understand there are 6. We have A1 to A6, 2 of which was in custody of FAR. Actually, FAR has the license. It's an Australian company to explore those 2 wells. They've done a 3D seismic survey, and they are in the process of now attempting to explore. It's not very far from, according to their information, from the 2 Senegalese oil wells. So we've covered that too, and as well the visit of the Qatari Justice Minister, the Attorney General, the state of Qatar, to the Gambia. It happened yesterday at the State House. The Qatari ambassador was also there. We've covered that, and I mean it's a new phase of Gambia-Qatari relations, and if you look at it, it becomes even more relevant when you look at it in the light of the OIC summit that is going to be held in the Gambia in 2019. I mean, there are a lot of preparations that are being done to sort of prepare for that event in 2019, and you could see Gambia is already doing some maintenance work with the support of some of the Arab states and Turkey, particularly United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Australia, and quite a number of countries are helping the Gambia. Qatar is within that.
I see that this present government is really doing very well in terms of, bringing other countries and creating that tie amongst the Gambia and other nations.
Yeah, but you would also realize that Qatar currently needs a lot of alliances in Africa at a time when it's suffering from what they may call a conspiracy blockade with the Arab states and.
But still at that, in as much as they do have an interest in the African nations, so do we as well.
Absolutely.
Because for every government that's trying to build a tie or a bond amongst each other. That's the international relations. Of course, we all have our own interest in it.
Yeah, but that's one way even that Barrow has done fairly well in terms of how he managed to have Russia at the table, China at the table, and at the same time United States at the table. We have relations with everybody. That's not the Jambe style.
Well, like, can I ask you this? Let me throw this question to you. Like, of course, we're having ties with Qatari. We also have other relations with these Asian countries. Do you think it's of the best interest of the Gambia?
Yes, I think so. I think what he said is really commendable. You know, it tells of a good government with a very good diplomatic strategy who can keep opponents in international affairs at the same table. That's pretty difficult. If you can manage that as a government, you really do a very good service for yourself, because mostly what happens is that people get excited and they said, okay, my ally's enemy is my enemy. Even whereas you don't actually have any reason to sever, you know, or strain relationship with that country. So it's really a very good initiative by the new government to ensure that they have their bilateral relations with the different countries at very good level, and you know the difference among them did not interfere in how they consider their relations with those. That's very good. You know, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, I mean, are jostling. I mean, you know, for dominance in that part of the world. You know, Qatar has suffered blockage which has been imposed by Saudi. They attack Qatar. They accuse Qatar of siding with terrorism and etc. etc. And Qatar has really resisted and proved that, well, even with all sanctions, they managed to survive. They're still as relevant as they are before the sanctions. And that kind of argument. And now President Barrow need all these sides because he's going to host the OIC, and these are the key players and members who will come to the conference, and in fact will raise much needed supports to have the infrastructure and other logistics in place. So it's a good move, right, for the president to have fantastic relations.
Already we've seen some effects of that relations as it relates to how the OIC summit next year. I mean, you've seen a lot of road construction and also some patches on some roads.
I even saw at Banjul they seem to try to expand the road a little.
It's all part of the
major
OIC.
One will be the traffic light down to Banjul Airport Johnson road, which we are told would be built to be a double carriageway.
Wow.
But then of course we have about a little over a year.
A presidential villa also
will be upgraded because there are a lot of important heads of states.
At AU? Is it?
Now you remember that was the
presidential
issue.
villa at the airport, the VIP lounge will also be upgraded because of the caliber of heads of state who are coming for that summit. But then we are a little over a year. Of course, the Chinese conference center package is well in advance. At least if you are passing on the road, the structure has come up, and it is believed that the way the Chinese work, that one will be completed before the summit in August. But then the road, the major road construction is the traffic light to Airport Johnson. That will be a dual carriageway. That needs to start now.
That's really going to be a facelifting for the Gambia.
That would be a very good road.
I imagine, especially mentioning the Chinese who have coming.
Yeah.
Definitely. Mr. Lamin Cham, what else do we have that's quite trending on the news during the week?
The Central Bank of the Gambia Act, National Assembly have passed the bill. That's Minister of Finance and even international partners in the world think that will bring central bank's operations to international standards.
Wow, that's a good one.
Now you realize that in the past 22 years, the central bank really have been reduced to what nobody can even describe, because even the commercial banks have more tighter regulations in terms of how you can withdraw money from their bank.
Right.
Even stricter than the central bank, which should have been the most difficult place for anyone to withdraw money from. But like we have seen at the Commission of Inquiries, if I am Secretary General, I can send Mustafa from Badibu to go and get money and go and throw a party in Salikeje.
Yeah.
Now those things have now stopped. According to Finance Minister Mamburi, this bill is going to bring the central bank's operation to international standard. They will have external auditors, and then it will no longer be possible for anybody to abuse the system and get money out for one thing or the other. So this bill, once it's assented to the president, even Adam Barrow cannot get money for himself from the bank unless he goes through
the right channel,
the right process. So that's the good thing about it. And that's
I was actually in the parliament. We covered it too when it was being debated, and one of the key selling points, as it were, that the minister had put to the lawmakers was that this is going to make the National Assembly independent, the central bank independent of both the influence and control of the president, but also independent as a state financial institution that's moving out a bit from the influence of the finance ministry. Exactly. Of course, central bank kind of walk hand in glove with the finance ministry, but there are certain degree of independence that the bank should enjoy.
That's right.
So that certain manipulation of.
So overall, you think it's a good bill?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think it has come at a time when a lot of us are thinking of prudent fiscal management. We're thinking of a bit of independence, stronger independence of the central bank as an institution. Even the governor talks a lot about this, in the past, that the central bank needs to be more independent.
Like I must allude to what you have said, because I feel as an institution that oversees the general financial of the country, you need to be independent, because we've seen what had happened during the previous government, where, as you said, anyone could rightfully just walk in because of the position that you have in the government, and you just decide to walk through your way. Because at the end of the day, this is why we have some people denying the fact that it was their doing.
Yeah.
And then some are actually trying to blame the previous president, even if he was the one that assigned them or not. We still see what's going on. Well, thank you very much. It has been a very interesting session of the newspaper review. And then now, we'll go to the most exciting part of the brunch. I can't wait. That is the entrepreneur of the week. And what we do is we always profile a Gambian that is doing very well in the business sector. Of course, we know that having small business, middle businesses, or whatever type of business that you're engaged in, it helps in the increase of the GDP of the nation, which also increase the amount of employment that young Gambians could be able to attain. And today, we'll have Yuma Osewali, who is a Gambian designer. She's been doing very well. She started off, from a little scale of business, trying to do her fashion stuff, and she also further went in expressing how she started. She wasn't her first attempt. She kind of failed because she had an order from this prominent individual, but then her finishing was bad. But then we'll get to see more about how she became a successful entrepreneur. Yuma Osewali, we have now.
My name is Yuma Walendong. I am a young married Gambian, 30 years of age, have a son, and then I'm an entrepreneur and also working full-time in a company called Approved Services APS. Well, it all started back in 2009 when I started, these music videos, Nigerian music videos, when I see a lot of African fabric being worn by these Nigerian artists, and it really inspired me. And by then it was very difficult to have young people like us to wear African wear. And I can remember my mom used to force me to wear African every Friday, but it was because it was so big, these grandma or big rappers, and these, I didn't feel like very comfortable with it. But when I saw these videos, I was like, wow, this is great. Then I said, why can't I start doing things like this? I started designing for myself. I would design something and take it to a tailor and say, I just want a top, and then I wear it with my jeans, or I want a wax trousers and I can wear it with my favorite top. That is how it all started. And then people started asking me, wow, I like your style. It's like I don't have a tailor, like I am not a designer or anything, but I do create my own styles and then give it to the tailors to sew. So they started telling me, I think you can do this. Why don't you start sewing and stuff like that? Learn how to sew. But the learning part was like, I don't think it's gonna be happen anytime soon. But maybe what I can do is maybe just design and contract tailors to sew. This is how it started.
Purchase your tracks today.
Well, it wasn't money at first because it was very difficult, like trying to introduce something that was totally new to the people. I'm not saying I am the first, but I could say I'm one of the first that started doing all this tops and bottoms of, because most of these big fashion designers were mainly focusing on like ceremonial clothes, like weddings and party clothes, like big grand boobas and stuff, but all these tops. And also what I started first was with patching t-shirts, having wax and patching it on the t-shirts or changing the sleeves. And then I opened a Facebook page and started, putting all my stuff there. And I was amazed by the number of response I got from friends, from people I never knew. Like, whoa, like this is great, this is great. That was like really motivating, and I kept on doing more and more designs. I think I was doing well, yeah, but it was not, I wasn't financially ready to establish a business here. So when I was going to Sweden, I did a lot of designs, like let's say 2 suitcases of designs, went there just to sell. That was the aim, was to sell. Then I had the opportunity, because I always engage in social media. To be honest, it just pushed me to where I am today. So there was a lady in Sweden that saw my post and then called and said, we are having a fashion show and then we are really happy about like your stuff. We went through some of the fashion designers, and she thought, actually, I didn't call myself a fashion designer by then, but when she called me, I went there, showed her my stuff, and she was like, wow, this is great. So do you think you can dress some of our models? So unfortunately the sizing wasn't okay because they already had their models, but I said I had t-shirts where I patched with wax, and they had a dancing session on the pageant, so I was like, they could wear the t-shirts with their tights, and then that was where I got like, whoa, everyone was taking like numbers and stuff. That's how it started. Then I took photo shoots, a lot of photo shoots, spent money and and time with this, and made sure that my website was fully updated with good photos. Those are the things that also I invested in that really helped, because the problem was I couldn't sell my products, to be honest, because I was focused on design. And then later I came to realize that quality is very important, the finishing. So there's from the fashion show, a lady that had she's a white lady, but she has a store that sells African stuff. She called that she was interested in buying my stuff to sell it, but to be honest, it was just crazy. I went, and then she wasn't very happy with the finishing and the quality, so I just had to just bring back everything. Well, I was awarded the most inspirational fashion designer 2017 by Africa Crown International in Sweden. I think that has been really good, and I really gained recognition. People started really contacting me to really know what I am up to, and a lot of opportunities afterwards. Like I said, I made a mistake, invested in money, took it there, and it couldn't sell because of the designs were really wow. But if you look at the finishing, maybe the buttons, the zippers, and then the seams were not, that is a big problem that I'm even seeing here still with young fashion designers. But I was able to, upgrade myself, learn better, and seek, focus on quality. So, like, I have a lot of clients in UK and Sweden, and they do call and make their orders, and this is because I try to give them information that they need, like how to wash it, the things that they just you need. Information is key, and labeling and also branding is also important. I think that is what I'm focused on right now. I'm not afraid of competition. It motivates me. To me, when I design, I don't want to repeat it. So I would never claim this is mine. I have not made any manufactured any fabric or did a design all by myself. Most of it is inspiration, and I try to create something new from it. But competition sometimes here, it's like people are just like, this is mine, she's copied me, or why is she doing this, I am doing it, or I did it first, That is why I'm trying to have everyone on board. At least then we can, if we collaborate and work together, I think that this will really help with this unhealthy competition in the Gambia.
Save some money to build my dream home. I'm really confused about which estate company to approach. My friend had a bad experience with a particular estate agency after completing his payment and could not even get his title deed. This is serious.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Thank you.
My name is Oli. I'm from EJ Investments.
Understood.
Thank you.
I must say you came at a very right time.
Really?
I was thinking about houses.
Great.
What can your company offer me?
EJ Investments can offer you a lot. We're unique in the market.
Okay.
We own our properties and we ensure that they're developed with modern technologies. They're affordable and they are strategic locations. We don't just sell pieces of land, but we create settlements.
What makes your company different from others?
We're different from all real estate companies in the Gambia because what we have to offer is affordability, safety, and security. We ensure that you get a legal contract from when you pay your deposit. And within 4 weeks of paying your final settlement, we make sure you receive your title deed.
4 weeks?
4 weeks.
That's interesting.
Yes. Now tell me, what real estate service you need?
It's absolutely EJ Investment and Real Estate Agency.
Welcome from that quick entrepreneurial video, and that was Yuma Osewale. We came in contact with her and we saw the amazing creative activities that she's embarked in. She actually uses tires, turn them into seats, and then have, her beers, accessories and all of that, which is quite impressive for a Gambian young woman to actually be focused on such activities. And I think the government should as well do something to alleviate young people like Yuma Osewale and many others that are involved in entrepreneurial activities, because that will actually boost their morale to knowing that they are contributing individuals to the GDP of the country. What did you watched the video? What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I have never seen or met this girl, but from what I have seen and what I've heard, she's really on the best path as envisaged by experts and government officials or civic society organizers or private sector. These are the kind of people they want innovative and take initiatives from their own and come out with their own individual contributions to not just to their own development but towards the development of the whole country. Perhaps in the future she will be bigger than this and employ people into her business, and then that's how the economy grows. But it's good thing that Kerr spotted her, and I hope you will continue to do more.
Just to share a little bit of what we got from her, the other time we had their interview behind the scene, behind the cameras, and she was explaining to us actually what got her more motivated to the standard of her business or her production. She said she had one time a contract after one of her prospective customers saw her handwork and then ordered to get a number of other production. But then what had discouraged the woman from getting that production of her products was because her finishing was poor. And then she said to us when she came back, she's like, that she's going to actually work towards making her finishing a better one. And to my greatest surprise, when I saw her finish, I'm like, oh my God, is this from Gambia? Because it was neatly done. Like, you know, when you have imported goods or whatever, the finishing, it was so amazing. So I must congratulate Yuma Osewali, and I encourage her to further keep it up. The future is definitely bright. Now to one of the most exciting parts of the show, we have a special guest. I bet you want to guess too, but don't worry, I'll just save you that curiosity. We have Mr. G. Sankareh, Ebrima G. Sankareh, who is the government spokesperson. But before much ado, I'd like him to introduce himself to our viewers. Welcome, Mr. Sankareh.
Yeah, I'm Ebrima G. Sankareh. I'm the spokesperson of the Gambia government.
So tell us a little bit, who is Mr. Sankareh?
I'm Gambian. I've been exiled for 22 years. I returned home after 23 years in exile, about 3 months ago. I feel home. I've lived in America. I've also lived in the United Kingdom, you know, for school and stuff like that. So I'm back for the moment. And as I said, I'm spokesperson of the government of the Gambia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ebrima Sankareh, and welcome to the brunch. And I hope we'll have fruitful discussions with you. I will leave you in the safe hands of Mr. Lamin Cham. Lamin?
Thanks, Joy. Well, Mr. Sankareh, like you said, you've been in exile for 23 years, so basically you live in the United States and the UK. You're back into the country and government spokesperson. The first thing I want you to tell us that how do you feel and how did you see your job as government spokesman? Especially you come at a time when there are a lot of challenges facing the government as to how they communicate with the people. Now, one of the criticisms that have been leveled against the Barrow administration is that they do not communicate effectively to the Gambian people. Now, you know, in politics, you may have all the best of plans, programs, but if you cannot communicate effectively, this message wouldn't go down, and people actually will not appreciate what you've done or what you have actually achieved. Now, it is your job to help in this direction. How did you find the job when you started?
When I started?
Yes, since when you started. And how do you want to tackle that?
For me, it's pretty easy. This is what I've been doing all my life, writing and broadcasting and reading and teaching. So obviously, coming from the classroom as a school teacher, as a broadcaster and as a writer, I think it is within the principles of my specialization, really, to be a spokesperson of the government. Well, granted, President Barrow, as you know, inherited from a terribly dictatorial regime. The Gambian people, for 22 years, were silenced by a regime that brutally oppressed them. And all too often, when people walk out of tyranny, you see there's a latitude of freedom. And that's what we have in the Gambia now. So you have over maybe 300 bird species, as it were, who were caged for 2 decades, and now they're free. And what do you expect? There's freedom. They fly. So everybody now in the Gambia is an eagle. And when eagles are out of their cages, you know, they have to enjoy their freedom. So,
in other words, are you suggesting that President Barrow is victim of the very order he himself created, or he and his men created, by opening the space for people to say whatever they like? Because he's been first president who come during the era when everybody's free. So the volume of criticisms or scrutiny and things dissenting views we are saying, you think is in a way a measure of our progress as a nation.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't concur entirely, because I had worked here as a journalist before I left Gambia. I worked at Radio Gambia, and there was a program called The Weekend Spectrum that Peter Gomez hosted.
Yes.
And I was a very concerned reporter on that show.
Yeah.
There were programs we held on Radio Gambia that didn't go well with the regime of Sadauda Jawara. But like President Barrow, President Jawara also, is a believer of democracy and the rule of law. So if anything, President Barrow, I think, what he is having, he's enjoying it. This is what he wanted. He wanted Gambians to be free. Now we are free. It's up to us, particularly us journalists, particularly the citizen journalists, to also sometimes exercise caution and understand that this is our country and it's so dear to us that whatever we do to tarnish the image of this country eventually is going to affect us as people. So I think for President Barrow, with the interactions I have with him, I don't think he has any qualms with anybody expressing yourself. What is particularly worrisome is people who abuse these privileges. I have to rectify myself. It's not it's a right, it's not a privilege. It's a fundamental human right, subscribed in our constitution, that we are all created equal. But then, in exercising your freedom of speech, that doesn't mean that you also have a right, really, to lie, to malign, or to disparage innocent and decent people.
Right.
Well, like you said, a lot of people, including journalists, said, well, there has been a lot of goodwill from this present government since they came to power in terms of press freedom. And like you said, President Barrow at the beginning seemed to have a great capacity for dissenting views and expression of ideas. But don't you think his recent remarks about the press is not showing some bit of early signs of being uncomfortable with the media?
Well, I mean, you are a journalist. you chronicle what happens in the Gambia. That's your view. I have no right to deprive you of your view. That's your own sentiment. I have a different opinion. She may have. He has. My mom has. Somebody else has. So what you feel is your feeling.
Yeah, because I saw him come in the open and kind of attack the press. And well, particularly, like we've said in the press review, that some even had the effrontery of coming to him and asking for money to write good things about him.
Yeah, but if you are a professional journalist and you approach a head of state to give you money to make him appear good, what do you call that? That's called checkbook journalism. Do you subscribe to checkbook journalism?
Not at all.
No. Well, as I have never exercised it. I don't know if you have. Why would you go and approach a head of state to give you money so that you will make him appear good? It has happened here. We've seen through the Commission of Inquiry that a paper that I read even as a child, the New Africa magazine, took thousands of pounds sterling from President Jammeh only for him to appear good.
Yeah, but I think that was a bit of a PR. To be fair with New African, they have this column that they actually run as advertorial. That was an advertorial. Couldn't it have been a similar case that somebody approached the president for an advertorial like that, into a special feature?
I am not au fait with the circumstances leading to that conclusion, and for the president to actually say that at the rally. I wasn't privy to that. It may have happened before my assumption of office. But what I do know is that as a journalist, I have never and would never ask for money from anybody to write or make him good.
May I come in at that? Yes. Because, I mean, when the president made his comment, a lot of people said perhaps that's a sign of his frustration with the media, or the fact that he did not like what he has been seeing in the media. Is that a sign of worrying sign for future attempts, as it were, to regulate the media? If he does not like what he sees of the media, it can motivate him to regulate the media. We are about to have a new constitution.
I can assure you, and I can assure the Gambian people and the entire world, that President Adama Barrow does not have in his DNA dictatorial tendencies. That I, Ebrima Sankareh, would have never for a minute accepted my appointment if it had dawned on me that the person appointing me had dictatorial tendencies. For 22 years, I fought against Yahya Jammeh's kakistocratic regime, the worst of regimes. I would be a hypocrite to come here and work under a president who is going to muscle the press, suppress journalists, and oppress journalists, and repress journalists. I wouldn't do that for a minute. And President Adama Barrow, the guy I sat with, and he's convincing, he is compelling, and he's so humble In fact, his humility is so infectious when you sit with this guy. This is not a character that is going to waver from the trajectory that the Gambian people expect him. No.
Now, let's get to, from the very word go when you started office, it could have been the first, or let's say the most high profile, was your reaction, government reaction to the statements that were leaked, or rather that were leaked on radios recorded between former President Jammeh and his, his members of his APRC party. Attempts that were not, conversations that were meant actually, not meant for the public ears, but it turned out that it was leaked one way or the other. Many people said that reaction was, to say the least, over-elaborated and perhaps a little overrated and alarming. Some, let's say, supporters of Jammeh said, well, he never meant any ill for the government. He was very guarded in what he says. You could see from his conversation that he didn't want to be pushed to making direct criticisms or threats. Yet, you found some worrying things in his conversation.
Yeah, you would know that part of my training is that I first trained as a political scientist. Political science class, what I have learned is that it's always good to err on the side of reason. A president who presided over this nation for 22 years with impunity and gross and ferocious human rights violations had on an audio threatening to return to this country miraculously. If that was not concerning to you, then you have to go and read your books back.
Especially if there's a proven track record of his, of him, how to call it, of him threatening and carrying them out. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, but yet people still believe you took it too far. That your very message is actually defeating the purpose of what you intend to do, which is to calm the people's fears. Your message actually blew it out of proportion. People, instead of getting them calm, even begin to worry.
Well, if you listen to the BBC preamble to the interview, they said the audio sent chills across the Gambia.
Yeah.
So if a video sent chills, what do you call that?
Well, it means it already contains some things that's it.
Well,
that's
well. So me representing a government, you wanted me to sit down when Gambians are having chills to the back of their bones because of a tyrant threatening to return home? That would have been preposterous and irresponsible on my side to be silent.
There is also another side. Some said if anybody can do the job well, it is Ebrima Sankareh. Now, like I said, this government had a lot of problems with communication at the beginning. People felt the president is too silent and almost absent when major events are happening. There have been major events, such as the Faraba incident, such as some of the gaffes, if you want to call it, the president made during his Meet the People's tour, such as the controversy surrounding the planned building of mosques, the attack on journalists who, like you said, are checkbooks, etc. There could be more, because politicians, they speak off the cuff. So, are you prepared to pick up the pieces and kind of, rearrange or put them on track if they... Now, why don't you do this before? Like, prepare them, if you have time, and that is before they come on the platform, so that they don't make remarks that people will find funny or these things like that.
Yeah, you see, if the president is...
in other words, the British say, be the spin doctor.
Yeah, I know. If the president is going to the United Nations, or he's going to the ECOWAS summit, or some parliamentary debate, obviously he's going to have a scripted text before him. It is quite natural. President Barrow appeared on the political scene an unknown political player. He was a businessman. Absolutely. And he's been very candid and very frank about it. Well, now, almost 2 years in the office, it is a constitutional mandate that he has to go and face the Gambian people. So I think he just wanted to be natural, to tell them that this is the same Barrow that came before you a year and a half ago. Nothing has changed. Office hasn't changed him, quite frankly. So we also listen to what you write, to what you say, and we read what you write. So we also pick these pieces together. It's a puzzle. We learn from mistakes, and obviously, maybe next time we have a presidential tour, we will listen to you and we'll be having scripts, and the president will follow those scripts. But you know, it is quite natural in politics that no matter how brilliant you are, gaffes are just natural. People just make gaffes in their speeches. So President Barrow is also fallible. He's a human being. He makes mistakes, and he accepts mistakes. You know. But to suggest that the president is late in this, is late in that, I think Gambians, maybe because of the history we have, we are also so ambitious sometimes, I think, and expectations are greater than great.
Well, I don't want to dominate the interview, but I think I found Mr. Sankareh quite honest and modest about his job, and letting people understand that President Barrow is not an angel or a saint. He's just as human as everybody is. Do you agree with him that people are expecting too much from a president? Because after all, he's just a human being.
Well, I may to some extent, but if you look at the sort of issues that the president has had on the tour, there were some that are not necessarily mistakes. There were revelations that were not supposed to be made. That is not a mistake. If you go to the people and say, I want to build a mosque, which Barrow said, that was not a mistake. He said that. So people find it to be out of place, but that was not a mistake. Because Barrow said in more eloquent Mandinka than I can manage that we will build a mosque. He said, International Youth Movement. That's first person plural pronoun. That means we will build a mosque. That puts him in the middle of it. The concern that people has had with that, I think probably the spokesperson will talk about it, but the concern that people has had with that is the fact that this youth movement, Barrow is part of it, because Barrow accepted, but not just accepted, but allow it to carry his name, Barrow Youth Movement. But also he has put himself in the middle of it, which means he's allowed his name to be used to seek funding. And we know what happens when a president seek favors with private investors. We said that could compromise. I think that's been the
bone of contention,
the argument with people on the other side of the divide. They're saying if the president is involved, as it were, or his name is being used to seek funding, that's a bad thing for democracy, because that means private investors can take advantage of that and put money into his youth movement in favor of
and expect profit
contracts and government contracts and things like that. That compromise the president.
And of course,
I don't know what the spokesperson has in response to that. But
on the same side of on the other side of the coin, there's this other concern from people of other faiths. That, well, is this not another signal that we are about to be marginalized? You know, where you talk about mosque, why are you not talking about churches? So put this together, Mr. Spokesperson.
Yeah, profound hypothesis, also absurd hypothesis, because we know that before President Barrow came to power, the Gambia was an Islamic state. People were even asked not to go to work on Fridays in this country. Unilateral decisions made by one individual, not parliament, not the National Assembly. We know that at one point women were asked to go to work veiled, veiled. One person, Yahya Jammeh, decreed that. And nobody, I dare say, I've never seen it. I've never seen a press release from any religious denomination sent to the newspapers condemning Yahya Jammeh. I've never seen that. When these gaffes happened, I call them gaffes. I wasn't there, really. I wasn't into the president's head. I wasn't in Badibu. I joined the tour when they came to Sibano because I wasn't feeling well. Okay? But what I do know is after I met the president, he was very lucid, he was very thorough, he was very explicit that he does not have a policy of building mosques. He doesn't build religious houses. This was good gesture extended by some Islamic agencies operating in the Gambia as volunteers who, in tandem with his youth movement, wanted to build mosques and boreholes, toilets, provide fertilizer, provide seeds and farming implements. So probably in the construction of his sentences, the Mandinka Nkombe Mba Billale means we're going to do it, you know, is like it's a message and a messaging. You know, President Barrow is not a linguist. He is a businessman by profession. So how he articulates his views may be different from the way you do it as a trained journalist, or how Mr. Dabo does it, or how I do it. So we actually also have to create a room for conjecture and appreciate that not everybody speaks the way you speak.
But then, with the different faith, like let's say for Christians and all of that, don't you think if he had come explicitly to say that, oh, we had funding, because particularly when I read the article, I never knew that it was a kind gesture that was extended by his Barrow Youth Movement that brought about the 60 mosques that he intends on building. You know, if he had explained this to the public, then it would not have arise this whole thoughts of marginalization and other words.
So you were nervous?
No, I wasn't nervous because, anyways, I grew up knowing that I went to mosque when I was a child. I come from a Christian family. And then in Gambia, we don't have this mindset ne ki Christian la wala kele Muslim la. Because when it comes to Tubaski or any Eid celebration, we all celebrated it. I went to mosque, I covered, my mother showed me new ways to be able to go to mosque with my friends. But still, that doesn't make me, you know, sideline my faith as a Christian. So when that actually happened, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Does it mean that the Gambia is going to go back to being an Islamic state? Or what actually is going on? It actually, especially when the Tanene case also arose, remember, like, most people are like, is that because they were Christians that made the whole thing to die down and all of that?
Who was that?
The Tanene incident.
That's the graveyard.
The Tanene incident.
That was the graveyard. You were in?
I don't think you were.
No, he was,
here.
but he must have followed. That was when.
Yeah, the Tanene incident.
Some Christian community had a problem with private land
one
owner.
Barrow, one Mr. Barrow.
A private landowner who said they wouldn't use his land for Christian service.
I didn't know.
So based on the the president had projected that 60 mosques will be built, most people from the other faith also referenced to that incident to actually make them feel marginalized. Or don't you think, with this little explanation that you've got, don't you think that that really arose a lot of suspicion that the Gambia is going back to its Islamic state that it was?
No, there's no trajectory to suggest that. All I know is that the Gambia remains a secular constitutional democracy. That is what I know.
Interesting. Mr. Lamin Chab?
Yes, I'm now going to the other side, before we take leave of him. And that is, of course, politics. How do you separate your job as government spokesman, who is mandated to talk on government affairs alone? And governments are difficult to, the everyday running of government is difficult to divorce from politics. Would it be fair that you probably is another sort of politician?
Who, me?
Yeah.
But in my DNA, there is a lot of politics. My first degree was in political science. I had wanted to train as a political scientist. I later on decided that
so naturally it's a political appointment.
Yeah. It's a what?
A political appointment.
No, I wouldn't call it that. Lamin, come on. I mean, look, let me just tell you, let me be very honest. I was born in this country.
Yeah.
Okay, I trained as a teacher. I went overseas, I studied. I came back. There's nothing wrong with me taking any position in this country.
Whether it's politics?
Whether it's political, whether it's professional, whether it's whatever you call it, you know, advocacy or whatever. I am doing my quota until when my ship decks. When it docks at the port of fortune, wherever that is. In the next 2-3 years, whatever I do, God knows. I never expected I was going to work for President Barrow. I have never known President Barrow.
Yeah.
I have no political connections. I know everybody who works in the government. I have never, ever met any minister in this regime until the day I got my job. Never, ever.
So were you...
I never lobbied this job.
Okay.
I never met a minister. The closest person to me was the SAC vice president. We almost like family. And OJ. Ahmad Ba, Demba Jao. I have never met them since they were ministers until the day they left.
Did you apply for the job?
The job? No. I didn't
So how
apply.
did you get the job?
Well, I don't know. I was home and then they said somebody had recommended me from the United States.
So a recommendation?
Not even a Gambian, I think, some white guy, you know. And that's how I got this job.
Interesting.
And just 1 second. Just 1 second. Like all other people, when they finally decided I was going to be hired, I had to go through an application process, the same rigorous application process. I was vetted, I was investigated by all the security agencies from within and from without. And I can tell you, I've lived in America for 23 years. I have never been arrested once. Me, I have never been convicted once. I've lived in America for 23 years. I've never smoked cigarette. I've never consumed alcohol. I've never been involved in any illicit activity all my life. I am as clean as crystal.
Can I come in?
You're as clear as crystal.
Can I come in?
You're as clean as crystal.
Because crystal is clear, so I'm clean as crystal.
Can I come in here?
Yes,
because I mean, when you started your job, one of the most important discussions that were, within the media was that the government's inability to communicate, and also certain challenges that journalists have in verifying information and also seeking information from public institutions. Were you able to identify these challenges and find a way to solve them?
I probably need to come to you because you are the complainant. So maybe you have some points to give me, and I'll add it to Lamin and to hers and put it together. Well, yeah, jokes aside, that is what exactly my job is. In the coming weeks, you're going to see a lot of that. This is a new job. Historically here in this country, the information minister was also de facto spokesperson.
Right.
This is the first time that an office has been created, office of the spokesperson. And the intention is to have a secretariat. And this secretariat is going to have researchers, assistants, and all what have you, to come together and collate all these materials. Probably there'll come a time when we'll have a government magazine. Excuse me, we'll have a magazine that will detail some of these stuff that you guys are looking for, and permanent secretaries and directors are nervous to give you, not because they don't want to, but because of restrictions, civil service restrictions. So you must really give credit to President Barrow. President Barrow, conscious of these constrictions and these limitations that the press has been experiencing since President Jawara's days, decided to create an office of a spokesperson who will directly deal with journalists. That is why that's what he told me when I met him, and he really fulfilled his promise that he was going to do it. So let's give the dude some time, so that at least the Gambia can also move forward peacefully and progressively. And sometimes let us try to mitigate the negativity. Sometimes I think we are overtly negative. We are overtly negative and grossly unfair with President Barrow.
Let me come in there. I mean, one of the challenges as a journalist that I face, and some of my colleagues as well, it's this complex issue within all the institutions that there is some degree of secrecy attached to revelation of information. That if information is in your custody, which is actually public information, you cannot reveal it because you will not support. I mean, doesn't that affect your job? I mean,
no. That's exactly what I was saying. President Barrow, aware of this limitation, decided to create my office so that this time you don't even have to go to the permanent secretary. You call me. Like if there is a problem about scholarships at the Ministry of Higher Education, you don't have to call Badara Diouf. You call me and say, Mr. Sankareh, we understand there are 15 scholarships from the UK, and we want to know how they're going to be distributed. All I have to do is just to pick my phone, call him. He will give me all the details, and the next minute you get it. So now you don't have to, go through permanent secretaries and the bureaucracy and all that. This is why I was appointed.
We know that the nature of the government is such that it does not want to reveal everything.
The nature of governments.
Yeah. Such that it does not want to reveal everything. Governments are built on this idea of secrecy.
In the United States, they have what they call classified information, and they have public information. It is not everything that President Barrow does in his cabinet that you ought to know. It could be inimical to peace. So aspects that you need to know, you will know. Other things are classified up to a certain period, and thereafter they declassify.
There are those who say...
As a trained journalist, I'm sure you must understand that President Barrow doesn't have the luxury of telling you everything he does in his bedroom.
But there are certain things that may not necessarily be classified, but they are against the interest of an individual when they are revealed.
Things like
corruption, for instance.
Do you have evidence of corruption?
No, I am saying if there is no FOI law, like a lot of journalists are saying, we need a freedom of information law. Now, just a spokesperson, it's a good thing because people need access to information, but also an FOI law so that journalists who want information can have access easily.
Yeah, so what is the question?
I mean, is because the spokesperson, since that's going to help your job in sort of encourage openness and transparency in governance, isn't that part of your job to advocate that journalists have that kind of space?
All my life, I've been advocating for a latitude of freedoms, that freedoms are unfettered, that everybody has a right to investigate and document and report for public consumption. But the point I was making is, much as that is true, I am also aware that it is not everything that I know that I have to share with you, because some of it has serious ramifications and potentially ominous for the country.
Yes, that's why you guys took an oath to secrecy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Let me go forward to ask again is about the feature of the political feature of the president, which is of course tied to the political feature of the country, you know, at least in the short term ahead of us. There is this much talk about agreement between the coalition partners for a 3-year period. Of course, we have seen arguments and counter arguments against that. What we have not still have a definite, concrete, established plan of action that the government is going to take as to how to deal with that. For example, the president once said, it's the people of the Gambia who will decide whether he will serve 3 years or 5 years. I don't know whether your office has been put in the picture or is off with this kind of issues, because sooner or later they are coming up in the media. They rear up, weekly, I mean, if not daily, but on weekly basis, as to what will happen to the transition after 3 years. What, in your job as government spokesman, you think is the atmosphere around that?
The atmosphere?
In government quarters?
No, I cannot feel any temperature.
You think the president will go after 3 years or will continue?
Well, you just said, the president said, what?
If the Gambian
that is the
people.
Government people. It's the Gambian people.
The Gambian people's
But he didn't say
decision.
exactly how they're going to.
Yeah, I believe what he says. I believe him.
Yeah.
If he says the Gambian people, would determine that adds validity to the character of President Barrow.
Yeah.
That is a man who was elected by the Gambian people.
Yeah.
And he's saying that the Gambian people would make a determination at the right time if they want him to continue or if they want him to stop after 3 years. So the Gambian people, they are our constituents, whether we like it or not.
Yeah,
no. The president told you that he is working consistent with what the Gambian people feel.
Yeah.
And I trust him, I believe him.
Yes, sir.
So we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Now, what people want to be clear about is that, well, you said the Gambian people gave him 5 years when they voted for him constitutionally.
Okay.
So as far as the Gambian people, majority of the Gambian people are concerned, they know that once you have voted for us for 5 years. But now, where the Gambian people have nothing to do with is this coalition agreement, because Gambian people were in there when they had this coalition agreement between them. Of course, it would be argued that some people voted for them because they believe what they have said 3 years is because of that they voted. But then everyone knows his term is 5 years. Now, if the coalition partners put pressure on him, so to speak, or want him to adhere to whatever agreement they have made, how are Gambian people going to be involved? Because Gambian people, as far as they know, they've given him 5 years. How is he going to handle this? That's what everyone wants to be clear about.
Well, unlike you, I do not have magic solutions to political problems. So when we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ebrima G. Sankareh. It was quite a fruitful discussion with you, and welcome to the brunch.
My profound pleasure.
So next we will be taking you to a chill out spot at Caraba Avenue, where we went to have some delicious meal, and everything was quite interesting over there. So let's see where the chill out spot is at Caraba Avenue.
So many great things about Chilau Palace. You know, first is the location. It's right on Kerr Avenue, opposite the Pipeline Mosque, the former RLG building. Very convenient location, you know. Now people don't have to drive all the way to Senegambia, you know. It's right in the neighborhood, you know. Come to Chilau Palace, enjoy some good food, you know. We have good food. We have pizza, shawarma, pasta, and all the good stuff. And so far, you know, it's been good reviews on the food. Everybody's excited about the chicken and stuff. People put me to the side. The customers very happy. They say the food is delicious. Also, we have so many different games you can play over here at the Chill Out Palace. You know, we got the pool tables, chess games, Scrabble. We got over 8 TVs, you know. We're introducing a movie night here, which is going to be happening on Saturday nights, you know. So bring your dates, you know, come out and have a good time, you know. And most importantly, customer service. That's what we are doing over here. We don't play with customer service. We want to take care of each and every one of you guys that come visit us. Make sure you have a wonderful experience.
It has been a great experience walking at the Chila Palace because it has given me the chance to meet a whole lot of people and also to know what Gambians really like. So it's so amazing. Chila Palace is different because we offer good food. We have a lot of games. We have free internet access, and we have just so many different things.
The service we offer here, we offer the pool table, the barbie, the chess, the scramble, and Monopoly, and the juices here. The juices are here, like slows, baba, wonjo, and everything exactly, soft drinks, smoothies, and we do ice cream too, and we do cupcakes, birthday cakes, etc.
If you are in town, whether you are visiting, whether you live here, you want to have a really, really good experience with your friends, come to the Chill Out Palace. You know, so far we've been open for a month and it's just been amazing. Good food, just nice ambience. I mean, it's just a beautiful place to be. You know, come and see all the sexy, the nice ladies in Gambia. This is where they come. You want to see a beautiful woman, come to Chill Out Palace. You know, we guarantee you a good time. We promise you a good time.
Chill Out Palace, the hottest spot in town.
Definitely Chill Out Palace is really the place to be. Now to the most exciting part. We want to know who our special guest is, who is Mr. Ebrima Sankareh. Now, the first question we have for you is, are you ready?
Yeah.
No, I can't really see that excitement in your voice.
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
Are you really ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what 3 words best describes you, Mr. Ebrima Sankareh?
Highly disciplined.
That's 2. We're asking for it.
You're giving us a fragment now.
You've got 2 in a row.
So what are the 3? What are the 3?
Okay, 3 words that would describe.
Yeah, 3 words that best describes Mr. Ebrima Sankareh.
Discipline, reflective, and compassionate.
Interesting. So the second question. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Discipline, compassionate, and. You forgot the third one.
No, disciplined, reflective, and compassionate.
Okay, interesting. So the second question is, who are your heroes?
My heroes were Nelson Mandela, Thomas Sankara, and Kwame Nkrumah.
So what is the most vivid childhood memory you have?
Well, you see, I had very difficult childhood. My daddy died the same day I was born in a car, in an automobile accident, and I was named after my dad. I was born here in Serekunda, and I grew up actually in the Nyomis. So the most vivid childhood experiences would be growing up without a father figure. And maybe it has some advantages, because the absence of a father figure also propelled me in life to work harder and aim higher. So the most vivid childhood memories would be perhaps the days I spent with my friends in the Nyomis. I went to school at SL Primary School, then Berending Secondary School, then Nusrat High School, St. Augustine's High School, Gambia College, and proceeded to universities in America and England.
I have similar childhood memories.
Yeah.
I lost my dad before I was born, so probably.
Okay, we are twins then. In that tragedy, we're twins of tragedy.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So the fourth question says, what is the funniest thing that have ever happened to you?
Maybe my daughter asking me who my first girlfriend was. Yes, maybe.
That daughter must have been born in America. Must have been born in America.
Yes, he was. He was.
Oh, that's an amazing one.
Yeah.
So the fifth question reads, what's the best thing that has ever happened to you?
To be schooled. To go to school. President Obama, one of the greatest orators of this universe, described education as the greatest equalizer. So I think, given my humble beginnings, absent education, I would have never sat here to talk to you.
Right.
And talk to the world and the nation. So education is the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Lovely. So the sixth question, are you ready for this one? Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm always ready.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm always ready.
So this question should actually be my favorite question or my best question.
Okay.
So please, I hope it tallies with what I'm expecting to hear.
Okay.
What is your favorite Gambia dish?
Chere.
Yay! How often do you eat chere?
Every day. I grew up in a little Fula village in Nyomi.
Okay.
I'm the first boy to go to school in that village, Kerr, which is 4 kilometers off Bara, you know. And that's my uncles. We were all cattle herders. As a boy, I tended cattle. I farmed. I tilled the soil. As a boy, I was they used to call me cowboy.
Do you have a farm?
I had farms when I was a boy. Now all those farms have been consumed by land speculators. After 23 years, it's a tragedy. I returned home and found out that all our farmlands have been grabbed by wealthy merchants. So that is what has happened in Gambia.
But do you have any prospect of getting...
Yes, I have actually told President Barrow, you know, when I met President Barrow in his village, he introduced me to his best friend, who is a huge cattle farmer. And I asked President Barrow if he would excuse me to join that guy and go and do what I know best, that is farming and cattle herding. And President Barrow thought I was sick. But honestly, that's what I wanted to do. All my life, I was a cattle herder, you know, and I love it, honestly.
Definitely, after 22 to 23
and my
years.
love for chere dates to those days. In that village, every day is chere. Breakfast is chere, lunch is chere, dinner is chere. And it's healthy.
With cow milk.
And cow milk was in abundance.
So the next question reads, what is the one thing people would be surprised to know about you?
They'll be surprised. I have a public image, but I have a very private persona. You know, I'm very outward, gregarious. Some people like Matthew Jallo, my colleague and mentor, would say, but inwardly I'm a very private person. Yes, you'll be surprised to know that.
So are you an introvert?
You know, growing up without a father figure, sometimes you needed somebody to push you.
Right.
You needed some gas to push, and all too often those things were absent. As a child, I remember always sitting behind my auntie's house and taking my fingers and writing on the sand. And I knew I was going to be a writer one day. So, yeah, I was very...
So you definitely utilize your past memory as a child to build in you as the groomed man that you are today.
Today is my secret. Yes.
Now, the question is, what would surprise people if they learn about it from you?
I think what I have just said about me surprises many people. That I grew up in this small, mundane, celestial place called Saregalo, where everybody speaks Fula. That's the only language spoken in the whole village. You know.
So the next question is, what can't you do without? What can't you do without?
Books. All my life, books.
Books.
Every day I have to read before I go to bed. Books.
So how many books do you read within a specimen of a month?
With the kind of job I have, it's not possible. But I remember at Nusrat High School, 1 month, I read 50 books, 1 month.
Interesting.
50 novels, honestly. As a student at Nusrat, yes. I was a voracious reader. Not the syllabus. I am not bothered by something that is... I am not very organized when it comes to schooling. You know, it was Mark Twain, the American writer, who said, I don't want schooling to interfere with my education. The two are different. You can have all the university degrees, yet you are not educated.
That's true.
So schooling and education are two different things, entirely different. So me, I want to read based on what I want to read. School syllabus, to pass exams. But my classmates would tell you that I was not the guy who would read books to pass exams. I was more into my own, I had my own universe.
I see myself in you somehow.
If you love books that much and read that wide, you must have read the Pacesetters, the African Writers series, science fictions.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Which one do you enjoy most? Which series?
The African Writers series, Chinua Achebe. Of course, Landry Peters. You'll be fascinated to know that I'm the first Gambian scholar, really, to write his PhD thesis on Landry Peters.
Wow.
He wrote the second round.
Yes.
Yes. I'm not done yet.
Classically.
I'm not a doctor yet, so don't call me doctor. I'm still Ebrima Sankareh. You know, and Gambians like to call people doctor. I'm not a doctor. I have finished my PhD work. I've submitted my thesis. I'm doing my revision. But my thesis topic actually is Landry Peters. And Landry Peters was one of the pioneers who wrote under the African Writers series. Yes, and of course I remember the undesirable element. Muhammad Sow.
So that's
Pacesetters. And of course our own Gambian author, we have to celebrate our own people. Sirif Samsidin Sarr met me in Conakry. You know, and there was the one I enjoyed most was the one they call Coal City. You know, by Ogali.
That's Pacesetters again.
Pacesetters, Nigerians. Ogali. Yeah. Very interesting, you know.
So the second to the last question.
Yes.
I know you're very passionate.
Yeah.
I've seen you, I can see how enthusiastic you are about this one. But just wait and then get this one. The question is, what 3 words best describes your view of the Gambia?
Gambia. Home, sweet home.
Okay.
It's my home, it's sweet, and whether I like it or not, is sacred, is my home. Home sweet home.
I like those.
I totally love that part. Home sweet home.
All right.
So the final question. Okay, I know you've said home sweet home. It's okay to say home sweet home,
Yeah.
but this one.
Okay. It's about Gambia too?
Do you think you're still young? That's not the question, but I'm asking before I pitch the question to you.
I can do many things I have done 20 years ago.
Okay, now the question reads,
Yeah.
where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
In the next 10 years, you know, there's this English word called epiphany, which is a revelation.
Right.
I do not have epiphanies, particularly in Gambian summers. But I believe that in the next 10 years, all things remaining equal, I may end up somewhere in a classroom teaching.
Is that after you have been a minister or president?
No, those are high aspirations. Honestly, I think, you know, when I came here, before I got this job, you'll be surprised. The first thing I did was to go to Gambia College, and I offered to teach voluntarily. You know, so I love teaching, I love sharing knowledge, I love learning. Because you teach, you learn a lot. You know, so honestly, that's what I think I'm going to do maybe. Or probably establish a newspaper. Yes, it's possible.
That's interesting. So you want to hold a private-owned company, which is...
I have a newspaper that is a brand name, of course, you know, the Gambia Echo newspaper, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
Mr. Ebrima Sankareh, I must say it has been a wonderful time having you on The Brunch. The very first episode of the show, you coming here means a lot to us, especially sharing your expertise in terms of government affairs and as well sharing your little childhood memories with us. We must say we are very grateful to having you and welcome to The Brunch.
My pleasure.
More. Viewers, we are almost coming to the end of the show, but before much ado, I won't do justice if I don't ask this gentleman your final words.
Well, I think it's been great having Mr. Sankareh. You always said to every item the most exciting, but I think his presence, it was most exciting. And well, whether you agree with him or not, you must give him the due that
of course
he absolutely is up to the job, and we can only wish him success, the best of luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Mustafa?
It's been amazing being on the show and to talk about issues that means a lot to all of us. I mean, we are journalists, we are daily with these issues, and having a government spokesperson to sit before us and we discuss issues in a collective, it's been amazing being part of it. Thank you.
Quite interesting, and I must say it has been a total honor and privilege that has been given to me to be the host of The Brunch Show. Do follow us for our subsequent programs that will be coming every week, and have a great weekend ahead. Bye.
Now that I have saved some money to build my dream home, I'm really confused about which estate company to approach. My friend had a bad experience with a particular estate agency after completing his payment and could not even get his title deed. This is serious.
How are you?
Thank you.
My name is Oli. I'm from EJ Investments.
Understood.
Thank you.
You know, I must say you came at a very right time.
Really?
I was thinking about houses.
Right.
What can your company offer me?
EJ Investments can offer you a lot. We're unique in the market.
Okay.
We own our properties and we ensure that they're developed with modern technologies. They're affordable and they are strategic locations. We don't just sell pieces of land, but we create settlements.
What makes your company different from others?
We're different from all real estate companies in the Gambia because what we have to offer is affordability, safety, and security. We ensure that you get a legal contract from when you pay your deposit, and within 4 weeks of paying your final settlement, we make sure you receive your title deed.
4 weeks?
4 weeks.
That's interesting.
Yes. Now tell me, what real estate service you need?
It's absolutely EJ, investment, and real estate agency.
Moro.
Elimba. Do ko be. Alhamdulillah. Bari batara ni ko wulu ko jonki.
Nka bodana mbara la.
Je nyaadi.
Taman ndala furo ni de pour ka ke fudu daje bari ma.
Ndo